After Pakistan terrorists killed 26 innocent citizens in Pahalgam on April 22nd, tensions escalated and India responded to Pakistan. A cessation of hostilities was reached when Pakistan DGMO reached out to the Indian counterpart on the 10th of May while the Indo-Pak border was hot, asking for a ceasefire. Internally, NIA swung into action, launched a series of anti-espionage operations. This has now led to busting a spy ring. One of the ring was being run from Pakistan High Commission allegedly. Jyoti Malhotra, a travel vlogger with over 3 lakh subscribers, was arrested in Hisar. In fact, she was arrested for her alleged links with a Pakistani officer, Ehsanur Rahman, alias Danish, based in Delhi. She was arrested along with 5 others who also allegedly shared information with Pakistani agents in exchange for money, we hear. Now, these are allegations that are being probed intensely. So, along with Jyoti Malhotra, the YouTuber, Devendra Singh Dhillon, a postgraduate student, Arman from Haryana, Noman Elahi from Kairana, also Ghazala and Yamin Mohammed, Palak Sher Masih and Suraj Masih, all from Punjab, rounded off. All were sharing allegedly information related to the Indian Army and other military bases with Pakistan. All were sharing information that was classified, and one wouldn't expect for Indian citizens to be doing this at a time of a scenario which could have led to a full-blown war. Thankfully, didn't. India's Operation Sindoor was successful, but these were people who were rounded up by the security agencies looking at their and tracking their movement for the week when the conflict began with Pakistan. Now, in another arrest in the series of bust was Shahbaz, a smuggler from Rampur, who had traveled to Pakistan multiple times, who involved in illegal cross-border trade of cosmetics, clothes, spices and other goods. Now, apparently, some like Jyoti Malhotra, just like what Jyoti Malhotra did, he was also cultivating an asset and traveled extensively across Pakistan. In fact, also traveled to Bhutan, Indonesia, China. This particularly the lady here, who Jyoti Malhotra seemed to have moved across Pakistan. She's traveled many areas of Pakistan and has been a real good PR, I could say, for Pakistan as she went about speaking highly of the country. Now, preliminary findings at this point established that the accused were in direct contact with ISI handlers and had transmitted critical information on Operation Sindoor, including troop movements and key strategic locations in Punjab, Himachal and Jammu and Kashmir. Danish was asked leave by the government of India. In fact, he was sent out post the conflict. None of the people arrested are any young. They knew exactly what they were doing. According to the initial reports here, there's ample evidence to show their willingness to help any enemy country while India was almost at war. Now, let me bring in our specialist here to give us a little more. Spying on the enemy is not new, but how much help has web made or given to these people here? Has it made it a lot more easier for them to actually go against the country and share information that's classified, important at this point? One thing's for sure, that any citizen in the country today knows very well not to do this. So what really happened? Yashovardhan Azad, former Special Director, Intelligence Bureau, joining us. We also have Kanishk Gaur, technology and policy expert. Also Savio Rodriguez, founder, editor-in-chief, Goa Chronicle. Thank you very much, all of you. At my first question, Yashovardhan Azad, sir, give us your take on the number of arrests that have happened. In fact, they claim, the officers, security agencies claim that they were spying on India for Pakistan, all Indian citizens. What do you think of this? Really, what do you make of this? Jyoti Malhotra, who was a travel vlogger, she may have had an affair with a Pakistani. These are claims, right? We do not know. These are claims, but their claims are that she was taken away she was really taken into confidence by one man, a Pakistani officer in the Pakistani embassy here, and then went on to pass on a lot of information that was not supposed to be sent out. Can you outrightly blame her? What's the crime that you can outline here?
Well, let's say that what she was doing at this particular time would be a little suspicious, because at a time when India is at war, virtually it was a 4-day war, and you're traveling frequently, you've traveled to Pahalgam, and then there is a lot of electronic evidence too, the kind of information which is, or the conversation which has transpired between the two groups reveals that the information was being sought about the military sites and that were given. As far as the blogger is concerned, she visited, Pakistan twice, and she was facilitated, absolutely visiting all the regions, and then she visited China again. So I would still say this is an evolving operation. The operation is a good operation, but when it goes to the court ultimately, then a lot of questions will be asked, because you need some physical evidence, electronic evidence, witnesses for the kind of material which has, gone from here to there and which can constitute espionage. So yes, by cross examination, by looking at the roles of each individually, only then the case will be made out. But Nabila, let me tell you, it's a classical, what you call an ISI operation. Pakistani embassies, this is their wont. I mean, they will attract people, people who have acquired fame, people who have certain weaknesses, and they attract them, get them into that trap, and very, very slowly, then the information is ferreted out from this particular side without them even knowing. So let's see how the case evolves, and then we'll be able to, make an opinion.
Right. If I could bring in Savio on this, Savio, I wouldn't say that these are kids, but largely youngsters who have been arrested, and they're now outrightly being called as spies. How would you really outline the crime here? Why do you think youngsters of largely in their 30s falling prey to something like this so easy?
Well, I don't think their age has got anything to do with the allegations leveled on them. What is important to understand is the influence or the connections that they've had, and therefore they have been targeted, they have been allured, and they have been conditioned to work for the interest of Pakistan. And when you look into the world of spycraft, and something that we've written so much about in the past, spycraft primarily is about creating assets that deliver your objectives. That asset can be even a child for that matter. But these are adults. These are young adults, and these are adults that can be conditioned. These are adults that can be lured. There are many ways in the game of spycraft to get people to do your bidding for you, and that's exactly what you're seeing unfold. Now you have somebody like Jyoti who's gone to Palgam. She's got ability to get access to photographs over there. You had similar cases during the 26/11 where you had David Headley who came and was a reconnaissance man and did his photographs. There was a boy called Mahmoud Zillian that nobody spoke about from Maldives who also was involved in the reconnaissance during the 26/11. So these become assets that the intelligence agencies of other countries, in this case Pakistan, use very vehemently to get to their objectives. We have right now in India, and I've said it before on channels and in my writings, we have close to 50,000 Chinese spies in India working under some garb or the other, linked to the ILD of CCP, which is the International Liaison Department, and various other intelligence agencies that are there from rest of the world. So India is a hotbed, and in a place like Kashmir, somebody or the other is connected to some intelligence operation over there. So I don't think we should look at them as youthful people. I think it's very easy to lure people to do your bidding. Money is one aspect of it. Honey trap is another aspect of it. And the hope of getting something more than your government is giving to you
Yeah.
is what probably lured them. It's
You
as
know,
simple
but
as that.
my question still remains on whether they even know if they are spies. Yashovardhan Azad, do they even, in your view, I mean, they could very well know, but my question is how much knowledge do they have that they could be pawns in the hands of the Pakistani intelligence? And are we really underestimating the threat by these social media influencers Because not just Jyoti Malhotra, even the other man who was arrested was a social media influencer putting out videos. They could be doing this very well in good stead and spirit. But yet again, at this point, the lines are blurred.
No, that's absolutely true. There is a thin line. I mean, in fact, Jyoti Malhotra also met a few bloggers when she visited certain areas. So they also come under the scanner. I totally agree with you. What happens is initially, when you trap any particular individual, and he may be innocent, but there might be weaknesses, whether it's relating to religion, whether it's relating to money, whether it's relating to any other, the traditional statecraft, how you trap these victims. The issue is, as you rightly said, they are not innocent. They are youngsters. So if you're a youngster and you're seeing the situation, especially with a country like Pakistan, if you're doing something, say, with South Korea, you're doing something with England or friendly countries, there's no problem. But if you're going to Pakistan, you're getting facilitated, you're being fated out there, then obviously natural suspicions will arise. Now, as I said, the hard evidence is an issue, and in the courts you have to prove, and that's why there is a kind of a clutch of evidence which you have to get, whether it's from the electronic sources, whether it's from the physical papers, etc., etc. That will come later, but initially I would say it is a good operation. And once it evolves, you will get more information after these various people in the conspiracy are cross-examined, and then you'll really get to know how exactly it has evolved. But for example, we know the name of the ISI operatives. I mean, we know the guys who are in their embassy. So it's very easy to find out why this particular gentleman or this lady is meeting this guy on and on again. And that's what exactly happened in this case. And when they were using these encrypted platforms, and the other thing, Nabila, also, if you're registering the names in your telephone, in your mobile, under different names, the was it is show. If you're just a blogger,
Correct.
where is the problem
That
in
clearly shows there's guilt. This is not innocence. You know very well there's something that you're not supposed to do, you're committing. So, yeah, it's clear to me as well with the fact that she has had names, alias for actual Pakistanis saved on her phone, clearly shows there was something brewing. A quick word, Kanish Gaur, on how can we really hold technology responsible, digital platforms particularly, that really enables this kind of espionage communication. We hear that they were in touch with some of the Pakistani intelligence officials through Telegram and other digital platforms. How can you curb this threat? I mean, this is really open web. Where does it stop?
Thank you for bringing me in, and thanks to my fellow panelists to sharing their insights. See, we have new platforms which offer end-to-end encryption and do not comply to law enforcement guidelines in terms of sharing data or allowing any kind of information to be shared with government, whether it is for national security risk. That's why government introduced the significant social media intermediary guidelines in 2022 so that the government can get data from some of these platforms, and the chief legal compliance and regulatory officers were appointed, and there were 10 agencies which have been identified which could ask for this data, and within 72 hours the data has to be provided by these agencies. However, certain platforms continue not to comply to these guidelines uh, and offer complete anonymity to users. Now, these platforms would allow users to sign up on messaging platforms even without having a mobile number. So, today, if you create an anonymous email ID or you are using a particular number which does not have your KYC done correctly, you could basically start using these platforms, and it is very difficult for law enforcement agencies to one to track the message, to intercept it, and then you have settings which allow disappearance of the message after it's seen by the other party. So today, in the name of encryption, a lot of times national security becomes immensely impacted. And that's why globally agencies like FBI have asked for interceptions or certain kind of backdoors to be allowed when some of these secret messaging platforms allow complete anonymity. So I think it's high time that government also has these guidelines not only created but enforced on ground, and these guidelines to be used in case we want to track some of the kind of activity which is happening, and also be allowed to be admissible in court, because a lot of times the messaging, the encryption is set up in a way that the disappearance of message happens, and a lot of times the data which is collected in digital format is not admissible in the court.
All right. A quick word from Yashovardhan Azad, sir. Your take finally on how does one really be more vigil, to put out information on social media platforms, vloggers reporting by the minute on areas you are at, places you've seen, these kind of videos that are constantly released, exposing India, its infrastructure, and its real detail. How easily you have the enemy nation really making use of it. What would be your word of advice to those bloggers who may be doing it without knowing what they're into?
Yes. No, I would certainly advise them to be extremely careful in releasing any data about India which is sensitive. Maps or there are so many things, airports, vital installations. These are areas about which you should never give out any information. Remember, we were talking about encryption and cybersecurity. One of the best ways to sort of bring down a nation on its knees is through cyber attacks. Now, one has to be very, very careful to keep all your computers secure. You have to keep your vital installations secure. And therefore, one should not be very loose about conversing or throwing away anything in the social media which can be seen by the international observers. So that is one thing I would certainly advise.
All right. A quick word, Savio. Should in fact India now rethink its counterintelligence approach? Influencers, bloggers now putting out information on platforms. How easy is it to be misused? Your final take.
Well, I think any kind of information, whether it's coming out from us or whether it's coming out from enemy nations like Pakistan, is going to be used to the advantage of the person tracking that particular information. So, in the world of spycraft, remember one thing is that any information that provides an advantage to an enemy nation is going to be tracked, is going to be utilized for that advantage. We've seen in the past in 2611 where there were certain media professionals that were responsible in actually giving out information on live TV. And that was what the terrorists were quoting about, that we know this from that particular news channel and that particular journalist. So we got to be careful. What is important at the end of the day is understanding that we're in a state of war. We might have Operation Sindoor is still not completely over. We still are dealing with terrorism. And therefore, our youth need to be a little careful when you're working or you're associating with people from enemy nations, because information is privy to them. How they use you, how they misuse you is something that you don't know. You don't understand spycraft. You might be gullible. For all you know, all of these people were gullible, but they eventually ended up you doing something that benefited the enemy nation. And
Yeah.
therefore, we need to be careful with the people we associate with. There are many, many sleeper agents in India at this point of time. And I think we as Indians need to be very careful about it.
All right. We're taken. Let's just hope that they get to the bottom of this. Like Yashovardhan Azad did mention, you need a clutch of evidence to outline what the crime is, and this should be out so it sets precedents. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us and sharing your views.